リベラルなグローバリストはネットゼロと呼ばれるものを推し進めています。ネットゼロとはビジネス組織や経済機関ないしは政府が実質的な CO2 排出量がゼロになるようなエネルギー源に依存できるという考え方です。政府は化石燃料や原子力の価格を上げたり悪役化するような規制を進めることで消費者を苦しめ、非効率なグリーンエネルギーを生産する企業に税金のばらまきをすることによってこれを実現しようとしているのです。しかし今日ネットゼロ実質 CO2 排出量がゼロのエネルギーは存在しません。あらゆるエネルギーはそのサプライチェーンの過程において大量の化石燃料を使用しています。ネットゼロは不可能であるばかりか、そのような政策の試みに必要な規制は経済的にも国家安全保障の面でも不利なものになるため自殺行為なのである。ネットゼロ運動は日本やアメリカなどの自由主義国に対して中国に経済的戦略的に大きな優位性を与えることになります。エネルギー専門家のアレックス・エプスタインが以下の動画でリベラルなネットゼロ政策を解説しています。
Joining us now is Alex Epstein, an author and the founder at the Center for Industrial Progress. Alex, great to see you again. How are you?
Doing great. Very excited to talk to you again.
Alex, you've written recently about the deception of net zero. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this because, of course, our government, both major parties in this country, are committed to net zero. That was quite a big change in our politics recently, but the government has now embraced net zero by 2050. I want to get your thoughts on what net zero means and also what you mean when you talk about the deception that certain companies have towards net zero.
Sure. Well, the basic idea of net zero is it's net zero CO2 emissions. So it's saying of a given part of the economy, including energy, that this does not generate any CO2 emissions on balance. And when you hear people committing to things like this, usually people commit to things that are actually possible. And one piece of evidence that they're possible is that anyone has actually done them ever anywhere. And this is not at all true of net zero CO2 emissions. There is no energy process that is close to net zero CO2. The closest you can do is generate a whole bunch of CO2 and then claim to offset it by planting a bunch of trees. And these are all sorts of schemes. But in any case, none of them scale globally. So there's literally no prosperous place or person in the world, let alone aspect of the economy, that is net zero. So there's a question of why do people think this is possible? And I know the origin of this. It's the modern anti-human environmental movement that says that we should eliminate all our impact on nature, specifically our impact on climate, at all costs. So net zero, even 10 years ago, was considered a total crackpot idea of people like Bill McKibben and Greenpeace and Sierra Club. And it's made its way into the mainstream. But the crucial thing is there's been no economic development that justifies this as even possible, let alone desirable. So it is impossible to achieve and absolutely suicidal to try.
I agree with you there. And Alex, it's interesting, our government here, supposedly conservative, the Liberal government here, toddled off to Glasgow and started banging on about committed to net zero by 2050. But wait for this, Alex. They based their maths on basically unproven technologies. They said, well, there are going to be all these new technologies that come along between now and 2050, and that'll take care of it. Amongst which, the one that they're promoting the most, and one of our major businessmen here in Australia is promoting, is this idea of green hydrogen, the idea that you build all these wind farms, all these solar panels, they then put in the electricity into the process that creates hydrogen. Hey, presto, we've got a magical new energy source without any emissions. How feasible is that?
So it's important. This isn't exactly the same category as everything else that's promoted as, oh, this is going to help with net zero, which this is not a market revolution. So if there was some revolution that's like, oh, we can create hydrogen in some cost-effective way, that would be great. But it's not an economic revolution. It's a political ploy, or it's an image ploy. People are just saying, oh, I would love it if we could create hydrogen and we could do it using the most inefficient form of electricity that we know about, unreliable solar and wind, which is a complete parasite on fossil fuels and nuclear today. So it's just this made up crackpot scheme. And we have this unfortunate thing where these crackpot schemes become mainstream because they satisfy the so-called ideals of the anti-human environmental movement to be net zero.
なるほど、こういった形でやってるのかなと私自身は思ったわけですけども、
国際社会を変えていく、国際社会にその中国の問題を気づかせるために
たった20年で東京にオリンピックもしたんです。
Within a very, very large business that has locations all over the world.
And welcome to the 4th annual Japan Conservative Union Conference.
Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today on the topic of the environment, energy security, and U.S.-Japanese relations.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to join you for CPAC Japan 2020.
課題認識については世界から見ればもう何週も周回遅れしていると、そういう危機感を持っております。
東南アジアの国、欧州の国、いろんなその価値と戦略的利益と価値を共有する国との間で経済、技術を含めた相対的な安全保障、広い意味での経済安全保障の面も含めてネットワークを強化する。
このお二人やあるいは僕のような非力な人間の力だけだととてもできないから、日本の主人公は皆さんだけなので、主権者が僕らの話を今日もヒントにしていただいて、そういうことが分かる議員に投票する。